Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Attaining the Second Cognition. I'm Endall Beall, and the topic of this discussion is Into the Deep End. This is going to be some disconcerting information, and I'm coming out with it now because it's going to be one of the chapters in the Second Cognition Toolbox book. In order for humanity to come to terms with itself, there's a lot of things that we're going to have to realize and accept, regardless of how uncomfortable they make our self-image of our species and our individual selves feel. The human form is not unique to this planet, regardless of how many Christian and other beliefs peddle the idea that God created us and we're special and all that other malarkey. We're looking at the advancement technologically now, especially through pushing the transhumanist agenda of robotic intelligence, artificial intelligence, AI. The human body in all its forms and varieties across the universe is basically a biological form of artificial intelligence. The body has certain programming within its functionality. It has the autonomous systems like breathing and blinking and heartbeat and things of that nature, the internal processes that govern themselves that don't require conscious thought. Aside from the body-mind initial base programming, there is an option through programming the mind with consciousness, an insertion of consciousness, which is how the Beall virus managed to take over. It inserted its false consciousness into the form and then programmed the body-mind to do what it wanted. Soica consciousness is a higher level state of sentience than the consciousness presented by the hive. What has occurred with humanity is that it started out basically as a body-mind. The human body artificial intelligence can function on its own. It can feed itself. It can take care of the bodily functions, hunt, dress itself when it's cold, whatever the case may be. This is all part of the survival mechanism that's plugged into the body-mind programming. It's also predicated seriously on the fight or flight mechanism, which is part of the survival of the body mechanism. It's an inherent part of the body-mind programming. Now, what has happened is that the Beall virus intruded itself into the mind portion of this equation, and it took over the body-mind consciousness, the basic programmed AI, and it programmed humanity with its concepts of consciousness and, in particular, spirituality. The spirituality we've all been sold has been the so-called spirit of the hive collective, the oneness, the Atman of the divine Brahman consciousness, where we're each just a little bitty cell in this growing, expansive hive consciousness, which has fortunately since been destroyed. Despite the hives no longer being in existence, our body minds still have the programming supplied to us by the hive intelligence. This process of cleaning yourself up, doing your cognitive house cleaning, has specifically to do with removing the programming of the hive virus that controls the body mind, because it could control the mind as well as our physiology or physiological responses, particularly through reactive emotions. And getting rid of that programming so our Soica sentience can utilize the form in a more comprehensive and advancing manner for our species. Now, what's interesting is they had a novel that was written that got turned into a movie called The Host. What's very curious about this particular novel is that it had humans with supposedly an invader species that they called souls that were taking over human form. Naturally, it followed your typical Hollywood lines. Well, humans are resistant. They don't want this invading consciousness or whatever the case may be. I found it highly ironic that the invaders were called souls and the human resistance for that. For all intents and purposes, what people call the human soul is soica sentience. And when you view this movie, and go out to Wikipedia and look up the host on the Wikipedia look at to get a synopsis of the film. But let's put this film in context, or this novel in context. Here we have an entire planetary species controlled by an infectious mind virus that has moved in and taken over the form, resisting a group of entities called souls who want to try and create emergence between the body and the soul spirit mentality. Now, unfortunately, in this movie, what they did is they took souls and turned them into invasive tyrants. And it's a typical hive role reversal, let's stand the world on its head type circumstance. Through this process of cognitive house cleaning and ridding yourself of the habits of the virus, we're basically trying to deprogram the negative effects of the body-mind left behind by the virus, so our internal souls, or soica sentience, can come to the fore rather than being repressed by the tyranny of the virus itself. But naturally, the author of the book and Hollywood turns this thing on its head. You know, like, we're fine just the way we are, don't listen to that soul, you know, or like the Wizard of Oz, you know, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. But body-mind programming is part of this, you know, body, mind, and spirit triune that the hive kept peddling. You know, the body was the house of the virus. And so everything was body-focused and body-oriented, and not very much conscious-oriented or consciousness-oriented. The only consciousness the hive wanted you to tap into was the collective spiritual malarkey garbage. Now, the body-mind can function without a soul, even without the virus. Psychology is still trying to figure out the nature of the psychopath, which has no conscience. It can put on a good show. It can manipulate other people. You know, it can be, you know, an inveterate liar. But they can't understand what makes up a psychopath. In my personal opinion, for whatever it's worth, the psychopath is nothing but a body mind with no soul or conscience involved in it to utilize the body mind in a more wholesome form, so to speak. You can't fix a psychopath. They're perpetually broken. There's nobody at home where conscience or soul, or whatever you want to call it, exists. But I'm bringing up this information on the body mind as being an artificial intelligence, a biological machine, because we're bringing it up in the Toolbox book. And I mean, it's not a secret, but it's a hard pill to digest, to think that our forms are nothing but biological computers. So sentience, our soica sentience, can inhabit this form and experience material existence to provide us experience, knowledge, and a way to advance what we know through what we experience. This video is probably going to upset a lot of people. We're probably going to get a lot of negative comments and, you know, people telling me how full of shit I am. But it doesn't remove the fact that it is reality. Sure, it tarnishes our species' self-interest and our species' arrogance that we're something special and the pinnacle of creation in the whole goddamn universe. And the part of you that's going to rebel at that is the residual Hapim ego that wants to scream, I'm not that, I'm more than that. So we're going to want to embrace the lie that we are special as a species, that we are unique. I mean, look at science. Are we the only species in the universe? Look at how big the universe is, for Christ's sake. You know, use your brain and figure it out. No, we're not the only species in the universe. But human arrogance, based on a lot of this biblical teaching, particularly in the West, about how special we are, has rooted itself into our psyche. And we all have too much of a arrogant self-perspective in regard to this stuff. And the fact is, the species itself is not that special. I mean, the universe is billions and billions of years old, and human beings on this planet are pretty darn new in the whole equation. You know, I mean, you can try and substantiate the belief in humanity based on Darwinian speculation. Even then, we're the new kids on the block. But there's more to this equation than what our limited human perception is willing to admit or accept. And the fact of the matter that the body-mind is nothing but an artificial biological AI is a pretty big pill to swallow. But this is not about form. Forms die. This is not about your body, because bodies die. This is about the advancement of consciousness. And human forms throughout the cosmos are vehicles for consciousness to experience itself through physical manifestations. What we are doing with the Soika process is seeking to override the programming left behind by the virus so our genuine soul or Soika sentience can utilize the forms to grow our species as well as our consciousness. I'm ready for all the slings and arrows that are going to come from the comment threads on this. But I ask each one of you to consider these possibilities, because in essence, this is what this is all about. It's about the advancement of consciousness. And the human form is a vehicle for experience. The body is just the body. Without the sentient consciousness to drive the form, the body is just a body. Biological, programmed survival mechanism for artificial intelligence through which higher level consciousness can inhabit and experience the different worlds on which humans live and perform. We're getting into the deep stuff now. Everything prior to this is preliminary knowledge to open the doors for this. And this is only the beginning of what's to come, so far as the knowledge that humanity is going to have to adapt and adjust itself into realizing about the greater reality. This doesn't besmirch who we are as conscious individuals. It just requires us to retool our thinking in regard to what this is all about. So, as difficult a pill as this is to swallow, stay the course and don't give up on yourselves.